Pam lives in a small house on Lincoln Street with 2 roommates. She'd moved in just 3 months ago. But over dinner with her father, she admits she's already having second thoughts.
She says, we're behind on the rent, and she goes, I'm tired of it, and I want to know if it would be okay with you if I moved back home. And I told her, absolutely. I didn't want you moving out to begin with. And I said, when do you want to do this? She said, well, I'm going to come to the house on Saturday and do laundry. So we finished having dinner, and she left, and that was the last time I saw Pam alive. Pam was born June 25th, 1969, at K.I. Sawyer Air Force Base in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
Pamela was the oldest of the 4 of us. Pam was very much outgoing. She was part of a group of friends that liked CB radios, and her handle was Dark Angel.
In June of 1988, she moves in with her best friend, Shelley Norgard.
I said, I'm opposed to that. You've got your own room here at home, you got your own private entrance, but she did anyway. I was kind of upset about that, to be honest with you.
They realized they weren't able to afford the rent fully, so then they had a 3rd roommate, Jeremy Anderson, who had moved in with them. From what I remember, the 3 of them got along pretty well.
Monday came, and I called the place where she works, and I asked her boss, I said, is Pam there? And he goes, no. She didn't show up for work. So at that point, I called the police department.
I went to Pam's house with a sergeant by the name of Bill Hobbs, and the door was answered by Shelley Norgard.
They found Pam's purse, her driver's license, medicine, all her personal effects were still there.
Bill Hobbs and myself sat down at the kitchen table with Shelley and asked her if she knew anything. And she said that she believed Pam had gone out partying. She wasn't really worried of anything happening to her. And she said that they had a joint checking account to pay the rent. And Shelley deposited her portion of it. And then Pam Pitts had emptied the account and wasn't paying the rent. And so she was a little upset about that.
Gordo's Pit is in a wooded area. It was a place that a lot of the local kids would go to party.
And so this one person is sifting through some refuse, and he sees a human foot sticking out.
There was a big pile of garbage bags, and then laying on top of the pile was an unknown body that had been totally consumed by fire. Melted into the wrist bones was what appeared to be a bracelet, and you could make out just a couple of letters of dark and a couple of letters of angel on that.
There was a lot of trash around her and on her. The injuries to her body were gruesome. The sheer brutality of what happened to her was the most striking thing.
So we suspected that Pam had been killed and stored somewhere and then deposited on the garbage pile and burned.
Detectives turned to Pam's housemates, Shelley and Jeremy. They want to know where the 2 were on September 16th, the last day anyone saw Pam alive.
Jeremy's alibi was that he was at a football game that night, and that was kind of a significant event. And then he hung out with a couple guys. Shelley said that on the night of the 16th, she got off work, she went and picked up her boyfriend, Ray.
Who were you with the night of the 16th?
Ray, Don, John, and Terry. I don't know their last names.
And she said that they got done around 2:30 or so in the morning.
You sure you didn't take Pam out to the pits?
I'm positive.
So the police focused on that, talking to Ray clerks to see if Shelley was telling the truth, and they corroborated what she had said.
Detectives ask Ray to take a polygraph. He agrees and passes. With no new leads to fuel the investigation, like the dying embers of the fire that consumed her, the case of this dark angel's fiery demise grows cold.
I mean, they were pretty good about periodically updating me for a while, and then as time went on, I wasn't hearing much of anything.
Yet this case, with all its strange twists, was about to take another odd turn.
There were some Embry-Riddle students exploring a mine out Iron Springs Road, found a body in a vertical mine shaft and reported it to law enforcement. The body was positively identified as Ray Clerk's. He had been shot in the head.
Ray was the boyfriend of Pam's roommate, Shelley Norgard.
To me, if you think that's a coincidence, there's something wrong with you,
Police begin their investigation by matching tire tracks found at the mine entrance to a pickup recently borrowed by none other than Shelley Norgard.
Shelley was interviewed. At the time of her interview in the house, they found blood, and at a certain point, they walked up to her car and could immediately smell, I think they documented it as the smell of death. They found blood in the trunk of her car that ended up being, the same type as Ray's.
Detectives also find a 9mm Luger revolver under the front seat.
So they actually had some physical evidence to charge Shelley.
Despite Norgard's not guilty plea, the evidence is stacking up against her. A ballistics analysis shows Shelley's gun is the same caliber as the weapon used to kill Ray Clerks. After 2 years of claiming she was innocent, Norgard reverses course and admits she murdered Ray Clerks.
But I believe she killed Ray in the apartment, and then Ray's body was in the trunk of that car, and it sat out there until Shelley was able to borrow a four-wheel drive truck, go to her car, remove Ray's body, put it in the truck, drive it up the mountain to that mine shaft.
Norgard is sentenced to 20 years with no parole. She's given credit for the 2 years she has already served awaiting trial. Her release date would be in 2011.
Shelley's conviction in Ray's death now paints Shelley in a whole different light.
"42-year-old Shelley Norgard completes her sentence.
There had to be something we missed, so from day one, that was it. What did we miss? What do we have that will provide us the clue we need to solve this case?
All penal institutions in the United States, pretty much all of them, record phone calls between inmates and the outside.
There was a series of phone calls between Shelley and her father where there was tension insofar as her dad was concerned that she was going to be arrested immediately upon leaving the jail.
Hi.
Hi.
What's going on?
Not a lot.
He kept making reference to that night, referring to the night Pam went missing.
Well, that's what I've been thinking for 20 years, but then I don't know exactly. You've never told me what actually happened. I'm kind of up in the air again.
And she comes back.
I had a moment. I had a huge moment.
And then the line goes completely silent. That was a giant aha moment that actually led me to go to the county attorney's office and seek an indictment. Hello, Miss Norgard?
Yes.
Sergeant Dart.
Oh, it's Harmon now.
Okay, Miss Harmon, go down the seat. I'd like to talk to you about 1988.
Am I under arrest?
You are under arrest for murder of Pam Pitts.
What we decided on as a family, and I've taken a lot of criticism for this, is that we would offer her a plea deal, or if she confessed to the crime and gave us the details of what happened and why, that she would be released on time served.
It was more important to get the confession and the conviction behind Shelley's name than it was for the time.
So we offered a plea deal. And surprisingly, she agreed to it. And so we went into court, and she stood up and she said, I murdered Pam Pitts.
Shelley was upset with Pam because the checking account was overdrawn. And Shelley was really upset with Pam about her moving out because she couldn't afford to pay the rent on her own, and she didn't have anywhere to go. So Shelley was out looking for Pam, and she knew that she goes to Gordo Pitts for parties. And so when she found Pam, she confronted her. They got into a fight. She just, lost it.
She said, I punched her and knocked her down and got on top of her, and I just kept punching and punching and punching until she stopped breathing.
And then she heard voices coming, and she realized Pam wasn't moving, and she left. That was Shelley's final story. That's all we got.
I don't feel that what Shelley stated in her allocution was genuine. She didn't have to say what happened afterwards, so we're led to believe that Shelley just left Pam's body out there and that somebody else came along and burned it and, desecrated her body. I mean, it doesn't add up.
She gave no other details, and we were not allowed to ask any questions. So the legal handcuffs, I felt, were put on us. Of course, if it were up to me, she'd be in prison for the rest of her life. But we don't live in a perfect world. She's a 2-time convicted murderer. And my advice to her husband is sleep with one eye open.